I said no, and she painted my pool pink anyway. Glitter, streamers, a giant "It's a girl" sign. So I drained the whole thing and filled it with mud. HOA Karen painted my pool pink for a gender reveal, so I turned it into a mud pit. Part 1. The pink pool and the straw that broke the neighbor. I woke up into the squeal of a party horn and the thump of bass shaking my backyard windows. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then came another horn, followed by a cheer loud enough to rattle the glass. I stumbled out of bed, still half asleep, yanked open the curtains, and froze. My pool, my private, custom-tiled, not under HOA jurisdiction, recently renovated oasis, was now pink. Not just pink, but a swirling Pepto-Bismol nightmare. Some sort of dye, or glitter paint, was floating on top of the water like someone had stirred in a unicorn. Pink balloons bobbed on the fence. A giant "It's a girl" sign was zip-tied to my grill. And right in the center of it all, perched in a folding chair like she was hosting the royal baby shower of the decade, was Karen, mimosa in hand. Smug smile locked in place, as if this was her backyard. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was that neighbor. Self-appointed queen of the adjacent HOA, clipboard enthusiast, passive-aggressive note specialist. And even though my property isn't part of her little fiefdom, that's never stopped her from offering advice or sending unsolicited complaints about my lawn chairs. A few weeks ago, she announced, not asked, that her daughter was doing a small gender reveal and might borrow my pool as a backdrop for photos. I had told her no, clearly, multiple times. Apparently, no means, sure, go ahead and vandalize my property. I stormed outside, heart pounding. The second I hit the patio, a wave of overly sweet, artificially scented mist hit me in the face. Whatever spray they'd used, it smelled like expired cotton candy and vengeance. "Karen!" I shouted. She turned, lazily, like we were at brunch. "Oh, hi! Isn't this lovely? We thought your pool added the perfect touch." "You died. My pool. Pink," I said, my voice climbing. "Oh, don't worry," she chirped. "It's washable. I saw it on Pinterest. It's totally safe for tile." I looked at my once clear, peaceful blue water, now clouded. Streamers floated aimlessly. My custom tile work was already showing splotches of pink and rose tones. It was going to take serious professional work to undo this disaster. "This is trespassing," I snapped. "You're on my property. All of you need to leave. Now." Karen stood, still holding her drink like a prop. "Look, I understand you're upset, but this is a special day. Can't you just relax and enjoy it?" "Did you even ask me? This is my pool, my yard, my land. You had no right." Behind her, the pastel-drenched crowd finally began to quiet down, some of them clearly realizing this wasn't a planned venue. Karen took a step closer and whispered, "Don't make a scene. People are filming. Just smile. We'll be gone in an hour." I didn't smile. I turned around, walked inside, grabbed my phone, and started taking photos. Every angle, the balloons, the pink sludge, the folding chairs, even the dye buckets left near my shed. I didn't know who I was reporting this to yet, but I knew I'd need proof. Because this wasn't just pink paint. This was war. Part 2. The thank you. That broke me after the glitter settled, after the pink smoke cleared, and after the guests started trickling out with champagne flutes and smug little smiles. She knocked, Karen, at my front door. I cracked it open, just enough to glare. "What?" I growled. She smiled, like we were co-planning partners in some Pinterest disaster. "I just wanted to say..." Thank you, she chirped. It turned out even better than we imagined. My jaw twitched. She kept going. We'll send someone to clean up. No worries. And if the pool needs rinsing, we've got a pressure washer we can drop off. A pressure washer? Like that was going to undo the pink crime scene she left behind. I said nothing, just shut the door. Hard. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a one-time accident. This wasn't an oops moment. This was Karen, doing what Karen always does, walking all over people and calling it hospitality. So I got to work. I called legal helplines, dug through zoning laws, scanned through every ordinance I could find, and even though I wasn't under HOA control, I found a clause about unauthorized use of recreational property for public gatherings. It wasn't jail time, but it was something. I started a list. Every time Karen had crossed a line, moved my trash bins, trimmed my hedges without asking, walked her yapping dog across my lawn, rearranged my patio chairs for better symmetry. The more I wrote, the more my stomach churned. But anger wasn't enough. I didn't want her apology. I wanted her to feel it, to know what it's like, to have your space hijacked, your boundaries ignored, your peace violated. And that night, sitting by the pink swamp that used to be my pool, a wild idea took root. What if I didn't clean it? What if I made it worse? What if I turned this pool into something no party planner, no pastel-wearing invader would ever want to touch again? I smiled. The first real smile all day. Because if Karen wanted dramatic, oh, she was about to drown in it. Part 3. The Birth of the Mud Pit. By morning, the pool was no longer just a mess. It was a war zone. The water looked like someone had poured strawberry milkshake into a cement mixer. My beautiful custom tiles stained. My filter clogged with glitter, petals, and God knows what else. I called a pool cleaning service. The guy on the phone literally laughed. Oh yeah, we've seen this. That's a full drain, acid wash, tile buff, easily over $1,000. I didn't flinch, because something deeper than fury had settled in me, something colder, calculated. Karen wasn't just going to regret this. She was going to remember it forever. So I paid the consultation fee, hung up, and went silent. I walked to the HOA office, even though I wasn't part of their ridiculous club. Maybe, just maybe, they'd rein her in. But the front desk guy, braces and all, just blinked. Your address isn't in our zone, he said. We don't cover your lot. I leaned in. Then explain why your self-appointed queen is dyeing my pool pink and throwing illegal parties in my backyard. He promised to escalate it to the board. Translation: straight to the trash can. I left without another word. But when I got home, there it was, a note taped to my front door. Notice of violation, printed on thin paper with a suspiciously familiar pink ink. No HOA letterhead, no return address, just a smiley face sticker, and threats about community values and pool appearance. I nearly choked from laughing. Karen had gone full villain. Not only did she trespass, destroy my property, but now she was faking HOA fines like it was arts and crafts hour. And still, she wasn't done. The next morning, I noticed changes. My patio chairs had been realigned, pink ribbons tied to my gate, a basket of baby shower party favors left like peace offerings near my driveway. At first, I thought maybe she was apologizing, but then I overheard her. 2 HOA neighbors walking their dogs, chatting like I didn't exist. Karen had told them I offered the pool. "Isn't that sweet of him?" they said. "Sweet? Sweet! That night, I installed 3 motion-activated cameras, one facing the gate, one on the pool, and one aimed right at the corner fence where Karen liked to hop over for better angles. I also started a notebook. Time, date, screenshot, footage. If Karen wanted to play HOA war, I was bringing receipts. And just when I thought I'd seen it all, she came back. Not alone this time. No, this time she brought her little party planning cult. Clipboards, paint swatches. One even had a Pinterest board printed out. They were planning something. Right there, in my yard. "I think we should do the baby shower here too," Karen said. "The pink still looks amazing, and it saves us rental money." I stepped out onto the patio, cleared my throat. Loud. They jumped. Karen turned, blinked, then gave me a fake smile like I was the UPS guy showing up early. "Oh, didn't know you were home." "I live here," I said flatly. "And you're not doing anything else in this yard. Ever." She pouted. "It's just one more party, and then we're done. I swear. It's for the baby." "Your baby, your party, not my pool," she snapped. "You don't need to be so hostile. I've been very reasonable." I stared. "You died. My pool," she scoffed. It was festive. I closed the gate in her face, and I didn't look back. But that night, as I stood by the glowing pink water, something inside me clicked. I wasn't just going to block her. I was going to erase the appeal of ever using my pool again. So I opened my laptop, started searching. Mud delivery, landscaping plastic, water pumps, temporary fencing. I even texted Jason, my friend who runs a pig rescue farm. "For you," he wrote back. "I'll bring the mud myself." And just like that, the plan was set. The pink pool was about to become a swamp. Part 4. The mud hits the fan. The next morning, I called out sick. Not because I was tired, but because it was time to build a battlefield. By 9 a.m., I was out there draining the last of the pink water with a portable sump pump. The filter? Wrecked. The dye? Still clinging to everything like some cursed cotton candy. But I didn't care, because I had bigger plans. By noon, Jason rolled up in his muddy farm truck, grinning like he already knew the chaos we were about to unleash. In the back, barrels. Barrels of pig-friendly wallow mud, thick, sticky, gloriously brown. We dumped it. We churned it. We added compost, water, even a little mulch to give it that extra texture. I stirred it with a garden tiller like I was brewing a witch's potion. And slowly, my once beautiful pink-stained pool became a squelching, bubbling pit of ooze. By sunset, it looked like the jungle had taken revenge on suburbia. But I wasn't done. I strung up temporary fencing around the edges, hung a wooden sign at the gate. Private therapy zone, mud in use, no trespassing, the cherry on top, plastic pig floaties. 3 of them, all wearing baby shower hats. Jason even left behind a tiny wooden step stool and said, "If anyone slips in, tell them it's aromatherapy." And just when I thought things couldn't get dumber, Karen struck again, a text message from an unknown number. "You've made your point. Take the joke down, it's embarrassing." No signature, but I knew that voice, that tone. Karen. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the HOA bulletin board the next morning to check the damage. Sure enough, there it was. "Join us for a baby shower and poolside brunch this Sunday at noon. Scenic pink waters and family-friendly vibes." Scenic pink waters. She still thought she was using my yard, still believed this was her event space. And that's when the final light bulb exploded in my head. If Karen wanted a pool party, she was going to get one. But not the kind with sunshine and selfies. Number. She was about to walk straight into the great mud spectacle, and I was ready. Lawn chair, set up, umbrella, deployed, iced tea, perfectly chilled, and at exactly 10:58 a.m. on Sunday. I sat down in full view of the swamp I'd created, wearing aviators, flip-flops, and the calm patience of a man waiting for justice. Then, they came. Guests. Pastel dresses, confused faces, holding gifts, walking slowly around the side of the fence like deer approaching a trap. One whispered, "Is this the place?" Another nodded. Karen said it was the pink pool by the treehouse. Then came Karen. Full hostess mode, clipboards, maternity sash, a face that screamed, "This is my show," until she saw it, until she stopped dead in her designer flats and stared, mouth open, one hand slowly rising like she was about to faint. "What is this?" I waved casually. "Oh, hey, Karen, you made it. Thought I'd spice things up for your little party. The mud is organic, farm fresh, therapeutic." She spun around completely unhinged. "You filled your pool with filth." "Natural therapy mud," I replied. "It's trending," she shrieked. "My guests are arriving in minutes." "I see that," I said, sipping my tea. "Want me to fire up the compost sprayer for ambiance?" She stormed over, heels sinking into a patch of soft dirt near the gate. But she couldn't stop what was coming next. Because her guests, they were here, they were looking, and they were confused. One man slipped on the muddy patch at the edge and nearly flung his tray of cucumber sandwiches like frisbees. Someone whispered, "This can't be real." Another said, "I think it's an art piece." Karen panicked. "Everyone, please! There's been a mix-up. This isn't the real party." But they weren't listening anymore. They were recording. Phones out. Laughter bubbling up like the mud pit itself. One woman said, "Honestly, this is the most entertaining baby shower I've ever been to." Karen looked ready to explode. "You've gone too far." I stood slowly. "You dyed my pool, lied to the neighborhood, faked an HOA citation, and tried to do it again." I looked around at the floating pigs, the sign, the mess. This is me going just far enough. And right on cue. A familiar voice cut through the tension. "Afternoon, folks." Officer Ruiz. Karen spun around like she'd summoned him. "Yes, officer. He's created a hazardous environment. He's trying to sabotage my event." Ruiz blinked. "Is this your property?" Karen hesitated. "Well, no. But then I suggest you take a step back," she sputtered. "But he filled his pool with sludge." Ruiz nodded. "Totally legal. If it's his land." I stepped forward, folder in hand. "Photos, security footage, trespassing documentation, fake HOA notices." Ruiz flipped through it. "Yep, looks like she's the one out of line." Karen's face went from blush pink to beet red. Ruiz said calmly, "If you return without permission again, you'll be cited for trespassing." Karen didn't speak. She just turned, heels squelching in the mud, and marched away as her party guests awkwardly followed behind. One guy stayed behind just long enough to say, "You really leaned into the mud vibe. I respect it." Then he snapped a selfie with the sign. And just like that, the baby shower was over. The war just beginning. Part 5, Viral Mud and HOA Meltdown. By Sunday night, my backyard wasn't just a spectacle, it was the main event of the entire internet. A neighbor's teenager had posted a TikTok of the whole fiasco. Karen stomping through the mud, screaming like a Shakespeare villain, guests tiptoeing through sludge while trying to save their baby shower balloons. And the caption? HOA Queen. Karen hijacked a neighbor's pool, so he turned it into a mud pit. Justice served. Within 24 hours, it hit over 500,000 views. By the next morning, 1.2 million. The comment section was a digital standing ovation. This is the energy we need in 2025. I would have added frogs and a sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, the petty king has risen. I couldn't scroll more than a minute without seeing a meme of Karen's horrified face, paired with captions like, "When your HOA dreams die in mud." But while the world was laughing, Karen? She was plotting, because by noon that Monday I received a very official-looking envelope. Letterhead, watermark, multiple signatures in Comic Sans. Classy. It read, "Your backyard has been deemed a sanitation hazard under HOA Code 14B. Immediate remediation required. Failure to comply may result in legal action or neighborhood exclusion." Neighborhood exclusion? What is this? A suburban Hunger Games? I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee into the compost bucket. These people, led by a woman who dyed my pool pink with party glitter, were now trying to punish me? For mud? But I wasn't going to roll over. I'd already called a property attorney the week before, showed him my files, the security footage, the forged notices, the trespassing. He just nodded and said, "You're going to bury them in paperwork, like you buried your pool in sludge." So that's exactly what I did. I submitted a cease and desist, filed a formal complaint with the city, uploaded drone footage of Karen's surprise gender reveal party to back it all up, and as fate would have it, the city moved fast. That evening, a black SUV with a city emblem parked right outside my house. A man named Daniel stepped out. Code inspector, serious face, no clipboard fluff. He walked into the backyard, took one look at the pig floaties, the mud signage, and the video playback of Karen's pink parade, and said flatly, "They dyed your pool pink without permission?" I nodded. He exhaled sharply. "That's criminal mischief. Also, hilarious. But mostly, mischief." Then he added, "And hosting an event on private property without a permit? That's a fine. A big one." I offered him lemonade. He declined, but smirked. Meanwhile, Karen, silent. Not a Facebook post in days. No HOA updates. No strolls with her fake binder of neighborhood violations. But you know what they say. Silence is suspicious. Because the next night, around 7 p.m., a group of teenagers rolled up to my gate. Not vandals, delivery crew, setting up tables, pink linens, cupcake towers. I stepped outside. Can I help you?" One kid looked up and said, "Oh, we were hired through an app. Some lady named Karen said this was for a baby shower by a pink pool." I didn't even blink. I just pointed behind me and at the glorious swamp still bubbling in my yard and said, "That's your venue." They stared, then burst out laughing. "Yo, that's actually genius," one of them said. I gave them a cash tip and a warning. "Tell her, if she sends anyone here again, she's getting hit with a real trespass citation." They nodded, still giggling, and peeled off into the night. But the damage had already been done. Because 12 hours later, Officer Ruiz was back, this time with backup. A city legal representative stood beside him with a manila folder and a tight smile. Ruiz greeted me like an old friend. "You'll be happy to know your documentation worked." The rep chimed in. "We're launching a formal investigation into HOA misconduct. Karen's actions violate multiple city codes and her forged citations. They're borderline criminal." Turns out, Karen's little fantasy HOA power trip had finally caught up with her. But here's the twist. She didn't just fall alone. 2 other board members, her minions with matching pastel polos, were suspended the same day. And the HOA president resigned, effective immediately. By sunset, the neighborhood was buzzing, and Karen tried one last move. She posted a dramatic Facebook status. When you try to bring joy to a community and are met with hostility, it's heartbreaking. The comment section? Absolute carnage. Joy isn't trespassing. Next time, maybe ask before ruining a pool. You've been dethroned, Your Highness. She deleted her account that night. And me? I sat by the mud pit, sipping tea. Jason texted me, "Bro, they're calling you the Mud King online. Want me to send more pig floaties?" I replied, "Long may I reign." Part 6. The Gate, the Sign, and the Final HOA Collapse. After the HOA's collapse and Karen's digital vanishing act, you'd think things would quiet down. And for the most part, they did. No flyers, no pastel patrols, no fake violation notes duct taped to my door with glitter pens and smiley face stickers. For the first time in months, my backyard was just that. Mine. But peace is funny. It makes you reflective. I stood by the mud pit, now starting to crust over like a chocolate pie in the sun, and thought, this is a monument. A messy, squishy, glorious middle finger to entitlement. But also, it was unfinished. So I made one final upgrade. Right by the gate, I hammered in a fresh wooden sign, hand-painted, bold red letters, "No trespassing, for real this time," and underneath. Smaller white text. "Still watching you, Karen. I swear. I could hear a clipboard shatter 3 blocks away." The neighbors loved it. One kid biked by and yelled, "Yeah, guard the mud." Another lady dropped off brownies with a sticky note that said, "Thanks for standing up to the clipboard cult." I even caught a retired guy 2 houses down saluting the sign like it was a flag. But the best was what came a few days later. A small envelope, no threats, no HOA logo, no glitter, just a single typed note. "Thanks for standing your ground. You've inspired more people than you realize." And signed, at the bottom, by 6 neighbors. 6 people I hadn't even spoken to before. Turns out, I wasn't the only one sick of the fake rules, the power trips, the silent judgment over lawn chairs and garden gnomes. Karen had been running this neighborhood like a suburban dictatorship until she met a guy with a pump, a plan, and a whole lot of mud. But I wasn't done quite yet, because a local podcast host reached out. Apparently, my story had blown up even more than I realized. HOA versus the Mud King was now trending. They asked if I'd come on and speak about property rights, HOA overreach, and backyard warfare strategy. I agreed, but only if we recorded next to the mud pit. They laughed. I wasn't joking. The episode dropped 2 days later, titled "Boundary Issues: How One Man Defeated the HOA with a Mud Bath and a Smile." The comments exploded. "He's a legend. Make this man president of every HOA-free zone. Can we get Commander Chomp to guard the mud next?" And just like that, I wasn't just the guy with the ruined pool anymore. I was the guy who won, the one who turned pink water into power, who turned a party invasion into suburban justice, and who reminded an entire community that silence doesn't mean surrender. But as I sat by my swampy masterpiece, I couldn't help but ask myself one more thing. What happens when Karen tries again? Because people like her, they don't go down easy, they reload. And I had a plan for that too. But first, I needed to clean the gunk out of my water pump, because the next phase might need more than mud. Part 7. The return, the fence, and the final flip. It started with the sound I'd come to dread. Clip, clop, clipboard. I was trimming my hedges, headphones in, when I caught a flicker of movement through the gaps in the fence. A pastel blur, a familiar bob haircut. And there she was. Karen. She was back. Not with balloons or fake notices this time, but with a measuring tape. I yanked off my headphones. "What do you think you're doing?" I asked. She flinched, clearly not expecting to be caught mid-clipboard creep, but then gave me the same smug smile I'd seen 100 times before. "Oh, just measuring fence height," she said sweetly. "It looks a little non-compliant." Even for non-HOA, I blinked. "You're measuring my fence?" She shrugged. "You know the city has regulations. Just trying to make sure everything's safe and community-friendly." There it was again. Community-friendly. Her favorite excuse for control. I crossed my arms. "Karen, you don't live here, you don't own this fence, and you're not on the HOA board anymore." She stiffened, then forced a smile. "Well, people talk, and I've been hearing concerns." "Concerns?" I asked. "Or are you just mad your party got mud-flopped?" She dropped the smile. Her voice dropped to a sharp whisper. "You humiliated me." I raised an eyebrow. "I gave you a taste of your own glitter-covered medicine." Karen's eye twitched. "I have friends," she said coldly. "You think this is over?" "Oh, I know it's not," I replied calmly. "That's why I've been preparing." She looked confused, until I stepped aside and revealed what was behind me. A freshly installed 8-foot privacy fence. Solid wood, no gaps, painted jet black, and on the corner, a motion sensor camera, blinking red like a warning light. Her jaw actually dropped. "You're fencing me out?" "No," I said. "I'm fencing you in to your own property." She scoffed. "That's illegal." "Nope," I said, holding up a laminated printout. "I cleared it with the city last week. Right after your last delivery, boys tried to turn my mud pit into a pop-up cupcake bar." Karen's face twisted into something between horror and fury, but I didn't stop there. "Also," I continued, "starting tomorrow, this entire yard will be covered by 24/7 live stream, and any footage of unauthorized entry," I smiled, "goes straight to my legal team." She didn't reply. She just turned on her heel and stormed off like a villain who realized she just lost the final level. And as I watched her walk away, arms swinging, heels stomping, clipboard flailing, I felt it again. That deep, quiet peace. Because this time, there'd be no comebacks, no fake fines, no trespassing disguised as community outreach. I had built a fortress with wood, cameras, and a neighborhood now fully on my side. But most importantly, I'd built boundaries, literal and personal. And Karen? She finally ran into one she couldn't cross. Part 8. The sign, the speech, and the legacy of the Mud King. 1 week after the fence went up, things were quiet, too quiet. No ribbons on my mailbox, no fake notices taped to my door, no pastel armies parading across my lawn. It was blissful, suspiciously blissful. But I wasn't about to waste the silence, because while Karen sulked in her lair, probably drawing HOA battle maps on printer paper, I was busy building something else, a message, not a threat, not a prank, just the truth in bold red letters. I went to the hardware store, bought paint, plywood, and a solar spotlight. And by the end of the day, my backyard fence had a brand new sign facing the neighborhood. Underneath it, smaller letters, hand-carved with love. "Long live the Mud King." At first, I did it for the laugh. But by the next morning, I realized something. People loved it. Neighbors stopped to take pictures. Kids posed in front of it holding plastic toy shovels, like I was running a theme park. And then the real surprise came, an invitation from the local neighborhood council. Not the HOA. No, those wannabe monarchs were still licking their wounds. This was from the actual city-recognized neighborhood civic board. They were holding a quarterly town hall, and apparently, I was the guest speaker. Topic: creative conflict resolution and property boundaries. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just a personal win. This was a message to every neighbor who ever got a bogus fine for wind chimes, to every backyard that was measured, judged, and invaded. To everyone who'd ever been told, "That's not how we do things around here," I was their mud-splattered, camera-wired, sarcasm-loaded champion. So I accepted. And when the meeting came, I walked into that community center, clean shirt, fresh haircut, and a USB drive full of photos labeled "The Karen Files for Educational Use Only." I stood at the podium, looked around at the familiar faces, some laughing, some curious, a few clearly just there for the snacks. And I said, "Hi, I'm the guy whose pool turned into a gender reveal crime scene." They laughed. I continued. "And I'm also the guy who learned that sometimes the best way to set a boundary is to fill it with 4 tons of mud." There was applause, real applause, and I ended with this: "Stand up for your property, your peace, your right to say no, and if that doesn't work, install cameras, and maybe a moat." The crowd cheered. A man stood up in the back and shouted, "Long live the Mud King!" And I saluted him with a grin. Because the truth was, this wasn't just about Karen anymore. This was about all the Karens, all the HOA tyrants, all the clipboard crusaders who thought respect could be demanded instead of earned. And from that day forward, whenever someone in the neighborhood got a fake violation or a weird suggestion from the self-appointed rule, police, they'd knock on my door and ask to speak with the king. Part 9. The final knock, and the day Karen disappeared. It happened on a Tuesday. The sky was gray, the wind was still, and for once, no one was filming. I was sipping coffee by the window, enjoying a moment of peace, when I heard it. 3 slow knocks at my front door. Not a package, not a neighbor. It was her, Karen, wearing a beige trench coat like she was starring in some suburban spy drama, clipboard nowhere in sight, face unreadable. For a moment, we just stared at each other. No words, no fake smile, no mimosa. Then she spoke, quiet, careful, like someone testing ice over a lake. "I came to say I'm done." I blinked. "Done?" She went on. "I've stepped down." The HOA board, they asked me to. After the investigation, after the city letters, after... She didn't finish, but she didn't have to. I could tell. Something in her had cracked. Not publicly, not dramatically, but deep down. The Karen that once ruled with ribbon banners and Pinterest entitlement, she was gone. I didn't say anything, just sipped my coffee. She glanced past me at the backyard, at the pool, now clean, calm, and crystal blue, at the fence, at the sign. Then she asked the question I never expected. "Do you think people will forget?" That caught me off guard. I gave it a moment, then said, "Probably not." She nodded slowly, like that was the answer she already knew. Before she turned to leave, she looked back once more and said, "You were right, you know. I never asked. I just assumed." And just like that, she walked away. No tantrum, no threats, no flyers taped to mailboxes, just the sound of retreating footsteps and the faintest sigh of a deflated queen. I stood there, stunned. Not because I missed the drama, but because I realized something. She didn't just lose a power trip. She lost control over people, perception, and most of all, me. I closed the door, went out back, sat on my favorite chair beneath the sun. Commander Chomp floated quietly nearby, still wearing his plastic sunglasses, still on duty, and I smiled. Not the smug, petty smile I wore when the mud pit went viral, but a quiet one, because peace had finally returned, and this time, it came without needing to push back. Karen was gone, and her clipboard, well, it never even made it into the recycling bin. Part 10. The pool, the plaque, and the legend that stayed. It's funny. You think once the chaos ends, once the violins stop, once the pink fades, once Karen retreats, you'll go back to normal. But peace? Peace doesn't just return quietly. Sometimes it evolves. My backyard is different now. The pool is clean again. Crystal clear, deep blue, just how I like it. But it's not just a pool anymore. It's a symbol, a reminder that boundaries matter, that no one, not even a clipboard-wielding HOA queen, gets to rewrite your property line with glitter and entitlement. Commander Chomp still floats nearby, sunglasses crooked, tail lazily drifting. Kids wave when they walk by. Neighbors bring lemonade. Even Mr. Peterson, the guy who once complained about my wind chimes, stops to say, "That croc still watching for Karens?" Always. And just last week I added something new. Right next to the fence, on a polished cedar post, I mounted a plaque. It reads, "This land was defended with petty brilliance and robotic teeth. In honor of Commander Chomp, 2024. Guardian of the Peace Pool people take selfies with it now." One guy brought his dog and asked if Chomp does autographs. I said no, but he might hiss if you get too close. The HOA, quiet as a whisper. Karen vanished from every board, group, and gossip circle. She became a cautionary tale, a meme, a verb. Don't go full Karen, people say now. You'll end up in the mud. And every time I hear it, I smile. Because they're not just laughing at what happened. They're remembering why it mattered. That you don't need to yell. You don't need to fight dirty. You just need to stand your ground and maybe own a robotic crocodile. So here's my final thought. If someone ever paints your peace pink, if they stomp into your world with false authority and party hats, don't panic. Just breathe, look around, and remember you've got options. You've got strength. You've got voice. And if you're lucky, you've got a pool, a plan, a crocodile named Chomp, and a neighborhood that finally gets it. The war is over. The mud has dried. And the legend? The legend lives on. Long live the croc, and may your pool always be yours.